Right on up. Come on up. Come get comfy in the chairs. For short people like me, I have to sit back and my feet kind of dangle, but all three of you are quite tall. You'll be fine. I'm really excited about this fireside chat. When I was with the province, there was always a bit of a little chuckle about the two provinces from the different coasts. We had a designed alliance. There was like a synergy between Nova Scotia and British Columbia. So I'm really excited to hear from Sara and Jordan today about AI and connected services in British Columbia.
Thanks, Natasha. So I'm Alex, joined by Jordan and Sara. We all flew in from Victoria, British Columbia. Sara and Jordan are senior leaders at a newly created team of teams that exists within the Ministry of Citizen Services, and it's called Connected Services British Columbia. When that teams of teams was created, it was an opportunity for the government to think about how to deliver services in a modern way, and part of that involves how to deliver that within the age of AI. So we're going to unpack some of that here this morning. And I'll start with you, Jordan. What problem were we trying to solve for when we created Connected Services BC?
Sure, thanks, Alex. And thanks for having us over here, and lovely to visit the other coast of Canada. I think in answering that question, I'm just going to take a step back and kind of connect some of the themes that I've definitely heard coming out of yesterday and this morning, which is really that demand for public services are only going up. I think another kind of thread of that, though, that I haven't heard come out explicitly is just the complexity of those services and the speed in which those services need to change and the demands that are coming to us is only increasing. And Natasha just mentioned around organizational agility to respond to those things. And then I think lastly, and I think Jennifer touched on it earlier this morning, around our resources and the financial models to support our current way of delivering those services are not working very well. We have deficits across the country, and a lot of the ways we deliver things are just unsustainable. And just kind of connecting that back to like a real world connection is really that I think a lot of us in the public service are very aware that, trust and confidence in public institutions is very challenged right now. And not kind of in like a polling way or data and statistics around economic health or services, but really just kind of like how people feel at their dinner table about their governments and their ability to get the things they need when they need them, often in times of crisis or extreme vulnerability. And so we kind of see that a driver of that is really how people are experiencing the services that they get. I think I heard Samantha, you mentioned yesterday that your son didn't want to go through the form just to get because it was just so burdensome, and yet there was this great thing at the end of it. What we're recognizing is people, and also very much also businesses as a user group, are experiencing complex life events, and those life events don't fit neatly into our organizational structures. So we're kind of connecting to our future of work piece. We've created this new organization where we've basically taken all of our frontline service delivery, all of our telephone service delivery, and all of our digital services and smushed them together into one organization. And so what would it look like if we organized around users and their needs versus our organizational structures, our ministries? So we have a group that is organized around humans and everyday life events, and so kind of connecting that piece around, and a good example of that is, starting from I had a child, to I need childcare, to I need to register them from kindergarten, to what does that mean to go into post-secondary education, to what does it mean for the labor market in this AI world. We also look at humans in emergent life events. So what does it mean if I all of a sudden got a severe injury and now I need financial help and social help and health care. And not just now, but in a continuous way. And then lastly, really focusing on businesses and their experience with government. What is it, I think we just heard Robert talk about like so many small businesses that exist in the land of Canada. What's their experience like with their government and their ability to get the, supports they need, the licenses, the permissions, just to do work and build a family and a community here. So our goal is, and this long answer, is really that by 2030, all of our high impact life events and business events will be a connected, secure, inclusive experience for folks. And I'll pause there.
Sure. So a great shout out for businesses too. I feel like we talk a lot about people who are looking to the government for services, but we don't always appreciate the impact that poorly constructed government can have on businesses and the economic ramifications of that. So thanks for that, Jordan. How does AI fit into the mix on all this?
Yeah, I think there's so many dimensions on which AI will come into this, but I think I kind of want to touch on a couple practical parts. I think we've heard from few different people around the ability of AI to really help us get out of our legacy tech and kind of a tech estate burden. And when I say legacy tech, I don't necessarily mean just old systems. I mean things that are no longer working for us, or we just can't sustain, or there's huge risks, or we're never designed from the perspective of having to connect across multiple systems for people's complex lives. I think it's underappreciated how much that kind of saddles down a lot of public sector IT groups, and they're like, I want to do the new thing, I want to build the new thing, but I'm faced with this operational reality that I got so many things I just have to keep the lights on. And so just the ability for AI to help us understand what our tech estate is, where are the risks, and actually like really shift the dial on how we might address those things and remediating, rebuilding, and perhaps getting to conversations to turn things off, is a game changer. I think another piece is, and we kind of heard the conversation around, is just like our data. We've recognized, yes, we have data quality issues, we have data standard issues all over the place, everything every jurisdiction does. But what's the opportunity there to help with helping translate data or improve the data quality or making things really interoperable? And then lastly, I think, and I kind of connect it back a little bit to something Robert said around like psychological safety, and I'll connect AI and psychological safety in a second, but one of the things I think we hear a lot from our public servants is like, hey, I want to learn, I want to do these things, and I hear this from leaders too, but I don't have the psychological space to do this because the reality of my day-to-day is just so, it's stressful and it's high volume and it's overburdened. So to kind of have that psychological safety, I also need psychological space to get into that mode. And so looking at ways we can use AI to help with basic, very mundane things that people do, or even use the conversation around AI to open up conversations, around generative AI, to open the door around conversations around like, maybe you just need like a deterministic RPA solution that's been around for a while, but the door is now open to have those conversations. So doing things to help people with gathering and analyzing and all the large amounts of information they have to do in their day, which is a huge part of any government service, and maybe automating things that should be automated, that make sense to be automated. Those, to me, I think are big pieces that will help create space for people to actually do the more interesting, fun things.
Awesome, thanks, Jordan. So as we've heard, I mean, this is a team of teams that's going to be delivering services across the province in a lot of different spaces. And with that huge mandate comes great social responsibility. So Sara, can you talk to us a little bit about how we ensure that using AI in these contexts improves equity and access as opposed to deepening that gap?
Yeah, I think everybody in this room knows that AI amplifies systemic biases. So we have to be really intentional about how we implement it, just to make sure that we don't deepen the equity gaps that already exist, but it also presents a ton of opportunities to actually improve outcomes for equity-deserving groups. So how do we do this? We have to go back to basics a bit here. We really need to think about equity from the outset. It can't be an afterthought. We need to make sure that we are embedding equity considerations when we are designing any new service, whether it's connected or otherwise, and AI systems as well. But we also need to do more than that. We need to think about equity throughout the life cycle of services and AI tool and systems development. So we need to think about it during design. We need to think about it during development, implementation, and ongoing monitoring of these services and systems. But it's also not enough to just think about it. We can't just leave it to the tech bros and the bureaucrats to think about the implications of their decisions and their work on equity-deserving groups. We actually have to work with these groups. In BC, we have digital principles and a digital code of practice. I think most jurisdictions across Canada have similar principles, and we have a principle around embedding equity in everything we do and working directly with people that are impacted by our services and systems and actually our end users. So we need to double down on that and do the hard work to get out there and engage early and often and make sure that those perspectives are not just being considered, but that we're actually working directly with those groups. Another thing that came up a lot yesterday was data. So we know governments around the world have data quality issues. We also have issues with data representation. If equity-deserving groups are not represented, or worse yet, misrepresented, there is a real risk that AI systems and tools can actually deepen the equity gaps that already exist. So it's something we have to be mindful of. We don't need to be scared of it, but it's a really good time to look at our data practices and really flex our muscles there, essentially. Another concept that came up a lot yesterday is digital literacy, AI literacy. So we've talked about it a lot, I think, in the context of training up our workforce, training up public servants, but we can't forget about the public, the general public, and especially equity-deserving groups. So I think this is a really good time for governments to think carefully about how we invest in the future and invest in literacy. Because we can build the most awesome AI-enabled services and systems, but if people don't trust them or don't know how to use them, they're not going to receive the benefits from them. And then the last point as well, Jordan already touched on it a bit. We can't, I know this is an AI conference, but we can't forget about channels other than digital. We have to make sure that we are really thinking about holistic service experiences and providing seamless experiences for people no matter how they come into government. So whether it's through digital channels or more traditional in-person or over the phone, we have to make sure that those experiences stay equitable.
I love that, and a really good appreciation that British Columbia is a big place. A lot of folks relying on your services are in very remote communities, and one of the biggest political arguments we often hear sort of against digital is like, well, my constituents can't use that. I'm from a place that's low broadband, no broadband, I need to phone or I need to go in person. So I think a really good shout out to building trust as we maybe move towards AI for those, for whom that choice is appropriate. We're going to move into a bit more of a rapid fire session here. So I'd love to hear from you both what you think is overhyped or underappreciated about AI in this space.
Yeah, I think one of the things that come to mind for me is that AI will solve all of our problems. Is probably maybe an overhyped thing. And not to say that AI is one thing, and we've kind of had that conversation. But I also think it kind of connects with a pattern where we're kind of gone back to leading with the technology first versus the problem or that we're trying to solve for a person or business. And so I think it's going to allow us to have some amazing tools in our toolkit, but sometimes the old way of doing something or a different method is going to be viable and quite might be the best option for us. So I think just being critical and teasing apart, is AI the best tool to bring to this problem, is something that comes to mind.
Yeah, and I will answer this from a policy nerd perspective. So I think something that's underappreciated, at least in the BC government context, is we already have a really robust policy and legislative framework for information management and information technology. So we have really strong privacy laws in BC. We have mature policies around responsible use of information and technology. And we have really great security standards. And all of these things still apply in the context of AI. So I really like the concept that came up a few times yesterday around minimum viable policy. We don't need an entirely new policy or regulatory framework to layer on top of what we already have. We do need to inspect what we have, adapt it as needed, but we're gonna be able to move a lot more quickly if we don't toss out everything we already have and actually just work within our current context.
That's great. So something that we haven't really touched on too much at the conference, but that I'd love to hear your thoughts around are some AI models will offer experimentation for very cheap, or sometimes it's free. And that can be really alluring, and it can get a lot of people excited and experimenting. Is there, however, a risk that some of those models then increase their prices, potentially increase them exponentially after government has maybe developed a dependence upon those tools? And do you have thoughts on sort of balancing experimentation, scalability, and potential financial ramifications?
Yeah, I think that's probably one thing that kind of keeps me up at night a little bit, especially as I think it was referenced yesterday, is we're kind of approaching that government 3.0 and what's the age of agentic work. And I think the potential for consumption and consumption costs to explode is very real, and you can see live examples of that with many companies around the world right now. But I think one of the things that kind of comes to mind for me is that I think right now we generally have an impression of the affordability of AI built on kind of a loss leader approach that's been going through, that we've had around, like, basically we've had kind of good tastes of what it could do. And so that's informed kind of it can do these things at these amazing cost reductions, and those cases are there. I'm not trying to have a negative slant on that. But I think we just really do need to be thoughtful on when we do take something and we build it out, maybe not for a bespoke use case, but we build a capability. Are we really thinking about that long-term operational and financial model of sustaining that? And kind of really back to the outcome, is it, that human plus that technology, are they actually yielding better benefits or more efficient services or cheaper services in the long run?
Awesome. So I think final question, and I'm going to start with you, Sara. What makes you optimistic?
There are actually lots of things that make me optimistic. One thing, I think AI offers us a really unique, once-in-a-generation opportunity to streamline our antiquated bureaucratic processes, just so we can get out of our own way when it comes to connecting services, delivering better services for people. I know there was a lot of chat yesterday about how public servants are inherently quite risk averse, and I think that's, it's a well-deserved rep in a lot of ways, but public servants, in my experience, are also extremely diligent and really genuinely care about providing the best possible services to people. And I think if we can work with our public servants, empower them, get them more comfortable with using AI to solve problems, they can actually be the key to making sure that AI is used in a responsible way that enhances the public good.
Jordan?
Yeah, I think the thing for me is, I guess two things maybe I'll point out, and I'm recognizing our time here. One is that I'm really encouraged by how the AI, kind of this period of AI disruption and the opportunity there is also happening at a time where we're having deep conversations around Canadian sovereignty and what it means to be in Canada and part of our federation. And so to me, it's kind of bringing that, okay, well, what does it mean to do AI here? What are the things we really need to care about? What are the capabilities we need to build? How can we build out meaningful choices so that we can maintain our independence in this work? And also, I loved, I think Paul had the comment yesterday of like, we're not going to do that through contracts and terms and conditions. We're going to do that through meaningful partnerships that extend beyond the public service. So I'm just really encouraged to kind of see and feel that vibe kind of happening and that approach that people are taking. The second piece quickly is that in my experience in public service, I've very rarely met the public servant that doesn't care a lot about public service or the work that they're doing. And so just that concept of like democratizing their ability to be the builder or the warrior or the craftsman in solving their own problem, that to me is extremely exciting. And I think that it's very optimistic that people close to the problem will be able to solve the problem.
Well, I love ending on a high note. Thank you both for sharing all your thoughts about British Columbia and artificial intelligence. And thank you all